Hello, hello, my hey, I got something to say, people. Thank you so much for getting back to me. I really appreciate it. I hope you're enjoying your summer, but I really appreciate all your support with my TEDx. You guys are the best. You're awesome. And woo, we're not even getting through all the questions for Mellie. But before we get into that, don't you worry. I'm sure you can reach out to her. I've been waiting a while to have her on. I met her at the WIT conference in Philadelphia. Thank you, Gloria Bell, for bringing me there. And she was a powerhouse. I was like, oh my God, I got to meet this woman. So I think I like stalked her outside. I was like, you got to be on my show. Mellie, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Really excited to be here.
Yeah, you were so good at the WIT conference. I was just like, where has this woman been in my life this whole time? You banged it out, man.
Such a welcoming audience. Like, I love audiences, all female audiences. So it's one of my favorite places to speak in that safe space.
Yeah, yeah, and you shined. All right, before we get into it, we're going to tell them just a teeny bit about you. Mellie Chow is an angel investor, venture capitalist, entrepreneur, IT technology, management, strategy consultant, and product innovation executive with 20 plus years of experience across multiple industries, including telecommunications and cable, utilities and power generation, banking, healthcare, government, and food. I think she's really 90. She is a venture partner at Archangel, Axion Fund, and the former executive director, competitive research and product strategy within a Fortune 50 company. Take a breath, Sandy. Mellie holds a BS at mechanical engineering from the University of Waterloo and an MBA from Kellogg and the Schulich School of Business. Mellie resides in Philadelphia still right now, but will always call Canada her home. So, Mellie, I just have to go before we get into your one statement. Did you come out of the womb going, I know I'm going to make a huge difference in the world, and you couldn't stand still? Because this is a lot, woman.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely not. I think I lead my life around asking myself this key question, like, what if we can be the change we want to see? And by if, I have this sort of like acronym guideline that I live by,
Yeah.
focusing on like three areas to drive systemic change. And this if acronym is I for investors. So become an LP and help other women understand venture capital,
Mm.
angel investing, and alternative investment class. Because wealth creation helps empower us to be our best selves and do well by others, and give back. Um, F being funders. So being able to, um, help diversify
Hmm.
leadership teams in a traditionally monoculture innovation environment. And then lastly, founders. So by supporting other female entrepreneurs, develop innovation, grow economic development by hiring, creating more jobs, and then ultimately, growing the pie for everyone.
Okay. That's brilliant, the IF acronym. But let's go back a little bit because you say that's how you lived your life. But I want to know the younger, Melly, growing up, did the family inspire this in you? Like, where did you get that concept? I mean, coming up with that, I mean, I'm picturing that your parents always pushed you to invest, to get involved, to be educated. So tell me a little bit about you.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I don't think I seeked out to be an investor. I was always a builder, like hence mechanical engineering, and I loved creating value and building things. But as a consultant, so IT tech consultant is kind of where I started my career at Accenture. Quickly realized, your career is kind of limited by time as a consultant because you bill hourly. But how do I like participate and scale my time and
Mm.
expertise and my and give back? And so I think something I learned really quickly in my sort of entrepreneurial days is that there's no such thing as a small business. There's only like small revenues, small margins, small markets, but no small business because it's all time consuming. You have to be all in to kind of grow this business. And
Love
so,
that.
yeah, and so like essentially, if your business isn't growing, it's slowly dying. And I learned that the hard way as well. Um, and so like as a consultant and the value creation that you build and to advise and help another startup or a business grow, what I saw is, like I said, no small businesses, everybody has like the same problems. It's just the ability to actually pay, like afford your skills and your services. And
Yeah.
so like I followed the money, so hence venture capital and venture investing because like I wanted to kind of support and be where the change is happening. So really make a difference. You need to support the heroes of change. And that for me is in innovation and disruption, where these founders and startups within the innovation ecosystem are really making that change. And so I didn't just want to help one company and bet on one sort of operating like as an operator or kind of go that.
Okay.
I took a more portfolio approach to my career and, seek to be the hero of heroes, essentially.
Okay. So I just want to go back a second because you're blowing my mind with a statement, and it's so true. There is no small business. I've never
Right.
heard that before. I mean, I'm sure someone else has said it. I've never heard that before. And I understand. I just want to make sure for me, like whether I'm making $2 or $2 million, I'm doing the same thing every day. I'm just making less money.
That's right. I mean, there's only 24 hours in a day, and we all put our pants on one leg at a time, whether you're the janitor or the CEO. And so it's just a matter of like, how do you scale your personal strengths and passions and attributes and bring those to bear that you're kind of optimizing for that value exchange, but also that you're like, doing contributing in a place that really matters and is making that impactful difference.
Okay, I'm going to have to feel my whole strategy out again. So here we go. Another way to look at it. But it's so true. You're right. I'm doing the same exact thing when I branched out my own after I sold my health clubs. It was the same amount of work as it was when I had all those health clubs.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I made the same smart moves, but like you said, you learn the hard way, which I want to get into the second statement and I can relate to.
Mhm.
You're not growing, you're dying. And then
Mhm.
you can relate to this. Please tell us more. Please make you human. We want to see good, bad, and ugly.
Yeah, and I think growth, Wall Street has like high expectations for constant growth. And unfortunately, a lot of um, future cash flows, like all of the speculative statements are already baked into the value. And so to basically outperform the S&P, you have to be amongst the top quartile of venture and angel investment. And angel investment is no small feat. And I think that's like the barrier that keeps most women out. It's the fact that typically there's a perception that it's a high minimum to get in. But nowadays, with the 2018 Economic Growth, Regulatory Relief and Consumer Protection Act, where they've like increased the number of investors allowed in a microfund, so from 99 to 249, and then lifted the floor of a microfund definition from 10 million to 50 million, right? What that does is it basically lowers the minimum of access in to a
Oh,
fund, to participate in a fund and be an angel investor. To be an angel investor, you still have to be an accredited investor in America. However, there are other ways to participate in terms of mentoring, using your time, right, and
mm.
expertise. There's also like crowdfunding
Oh,
type of
yeah.
deals, right, that you can participate in through like things like Kickstarter, Indiegogo. Like there's many ways you can vote with your wallet. But the other barriers are like generally lack of time, expertise, or resources for due diligence because it takes a lot of time. The illiquid nature of this asset class, right? Because your funds are locked up from 5 to 10 years, essentially.
Mhm.
The high risk, right? But high risk, high reward profile. And women tend to be a little more risk adverse when it comes to investing. And then, of course, like you're looking for a reputable fund with good
Yeah.
track record. And track record doesn't happen overnight. It takes like 5 to 10 years to gain a track record. So then, you create this self-perpetuating ecosystem where this monoculture starts to happen, like unless you take a chance on an emergent fund, right, with a thesis around helping other female investor or helping other female founders. So, I mean, women invest differently than men, ultimately, right? Like women invest in the long run, right? They're less prone to be day traders or frequent stock picks. Like they like to invest in things that are more diversified, right? Like a fund versus individual stocks. And then they also like to invest in things that have more social or economic or environmental impact over men. And there's a great study, a part of how women invest. Studies called How Women or Men Invest in Startups. And it's like literally a study that shows like the differences. But that like interestingly enough, you know, angel investment and venture capital is actually a great fit for high net worth and accredited women investors. It's just, most women, less than 1% of female accredited investors are actually angel investors. So there's definitely a huge gap in getting more
Yeah.
women in as LPs. But the potential is definitely there. And I mean, there's a ton of funds that, women can look at, including, like I mentioned, the study, How Women Invest. And they specifically focus their thesis on investing in other women, 100% women founded companies in Series A, B investments, so later stage. And they recently raised their like fund 3 at 100 million. And their like focus is education. So like actually finding new, like never before LPs, so limited partners, so brand new accredited women investors who have never invested in this asset class before. So they do a lot of like education and community building and things like that. So yeah.
Well, I didn't know much about this till a few years ago, and I took a speaking course and I was with a couple angel investors. And just recently, I don't know if you ever heard of this, they were helping to produce the movie Show Her the Money. And it's doing really, really well. And I did not realize, is it less than 3% that people invest in women entrepreneurs? So they're trying to shed light on that. And I was like, what? Is that true?
Yeah, so that number hasn't moved in like decades. And unfortunately, it is true. Less than
Why?
2.4% of venture dollars go to female founded companies. And there's a number of reasons for that. Like, I think one of the leading issues is that like women businesses aren't as VC scalable. Like, there's not as many women like like who actually are starting these high growth tech startups,
Okay.
men. And then obviously so it's about chances at bat even. We have fewer chances at bat, in addition to just like having fewer women in the pipeline or the pool.
Gotcha.
So,
Okay.
so I mean, there's a number of factors that all lead up to why this, less than 3%, so 2.4% of VC dollars actually go towards female founded businesses. And I mean, that's why I think there's a number of ways you can solve for that at Axion Archangel. So Archangel Axion, we're a venture fund, early stage venture fund that focuses on investing in Canadian IP-based businesses.
Oh,
I'm the only woman on our executive team. And what we've done differently, essentially, we've invested in over like 24% of our current portfolio right now is female founded or co-founded companies, which I'm really proud of. That's like 10x over the industry norm,
yeah.
right? So that's 6 out of 25 deals over the last 4 or 5 years have been female founded, female funded. And I'm actually really proud of my most recent close. It is a company called Fibra, and Parnian is the founder, female founded, based in Toronto, really early stage, but really proud of her and the team for developing, I call it a data analytics company disguised as a smart underwear company. And they've developed this smart underwear that basically solves for women's health. And their initial go-to-market, is fertility monitoring and tracking, because there's like no good solutions out there, right? Like no accurate solutions. And this is non-invasive. So like you wear underwear like you would normally wear underwear, and then like it kind of it monitors 4 things right now. So heart rate,
Stop it.
pH, volume, and temperature. And it can give you within a 12-hour window, because that's usually what it takes with fertility to know whether like you're ovulating and whether this is like, it's time. So really excited about that deal
You think? Oh my
and
gosh.
what it means for women's health. Because like they're starting with fertility, which is brilliant because go to market means you don't need a FDA approval.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But like it can kind of like monitor all kinds of women's health things, from like menopause to menopause to like, like STDs, like, and then like yeast infections, like all the things that we just want to know about, what's going on.
You don't have to go to the doctor. Like, oh my God, what will. Okay, so let's back up a second. That's props. I mean, it's incredible. It's incredible. But how'd you find them? Or did they find you? Like, you know what I mean? Because you don't hear about that kind of thing every day. That's mind blowing. And
Yeah, well,
you're just scratching the surface of what they're going to be able to do.
it was definitely one of the male GPs that brought her in and encouraged her to apply. And it was through that relationship. So props to him for recognizing it. And
Yeah.
I was just really happy to, close that deal and start to help her grow, because it's not an easy path ahead either, because it's a solution that is a wearable. So it's hardware, software, UI, experience, data, and then like a wearable, which is a very challenging path ahead, but like super ambitious. And I can't wait for her to bring this to market, because there's just this gap that like needs to be filled. And like I think her wait list speaks volumes to like there's a need. Like women want this thing. Like so, yeah.
What is going to be the price point, or doesn't she know yet?
I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's like super affordable. I think it's
Really?
like under $80 a pair, something like that. And it's like machine washable. And it's made out of like smart fabric, and the panty liner is like smart thread. And so it's like, you don't really need to change your behavior to wear underwear. And it collects this data that I think like one of the best things I heard from her early beta trial is like, Mellie, this is so empowering. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not even looking to get pregnant, but like, I just like to know what's happening with my body.
Oh my God.
So when I heard that, I was like, okay, we need to do this. Like, hell or high water.
That's definitely a hero. So I want to back up a second because I did get a lot of questions, and some of them were all the same kind of thing. And you've already answered some of them.
Mhm.
And again, I'm sure you can reach out to Mellie if we don't get to, one of your questions. But when you said, you really make a difference, you want to support the heroes, right? And obviously this woman is one of them. A lot of the women, let's go with Sally Bell. She's like, Dear Mellie, I want to invest. I've made a lot of poor investments, and now I've decided I just want to invest in female startups. And I'm not really looking to get a big return in my money, but I just don't know where to start looking. And I get so confused when I go on the internet. Please help.
Yeah, that's a great question. And like I said, those are the barriers. What Sally described were all the barriers that most accredited female investors, why they don't become angels, because it's hard. You don't have the time, you don't have the expertise, you don't know like how to deal source to get the best deals because like only to beat the S&P, you have to be top quartile. And so it's this whole
Yeah.
thing you have to create. So you can't just dabble. But to be all in, the easiest way to go about it is to participate in a fund as an LP, so a limited partner, and find a fund that has a thesis that resonates close to you. So a few examples would be like How Women Invest, right? They focus on 100% female founders and solving that 3% challenge, right? But later stage. And then there's another organization called Ayana Foundation, and they're a little more global, but started in the US. And they focus on, education. So like how to get women to become LPs, community and access to deals, like I said,
Okay.
because they tend to be challenging. Another great example is Elvest. So Sally Krawcheck, one of the pioneers of like helping women with financial literacy. And she created this robo advisory platform essentially. So not just accredited investors, and not just VC and angel, but like Elvest is a great sort of starting point if you're kind of just new to investing in general, helping women build more financial literacy. Another great example is Phoenix Fire. So Phoenix Fire is one of our sister funds. So
Okay.
Archangel, Axion, we're part of a broader network of funds. So Archangel network of funds based in Canada. And we have four sister funds, or three sister funds, sorry. So four sub funds total. And so Starforge is B2B SaaS. That's their thesis focused. Adrenaline is a follow-on investment vehicle. And then Phoenix Fire is the sub fund that focuses on investing in other female founded companies as
Hmm.
well. So that would be another one. Chloe Capital is another venture fund solely focused on investing in female entrepreneurs at the seed level.
Okay.
And then in Canada, you also had Stand Up Ventures, which is another great one. So like there's a lot of funds that might have a thesis that is aligned to your values and how you want to invest. And then I think if you're not quite an accredited investor, there's always like, ways to give back to the community through time, mentoring, etc. And then there's also like sort of more financial literacy, like things like Elvest that are like don't require you to be an accredited investor. And then like crowdfunding, like Kickstarter and Indiegogo, if you're kind of just getting started, learning about individual investments. But like my suggestion is always like it is really hard to be an angel investor because you can't really bet on a single deal at a time, and it's just so taxing. And like to her point, like you end up losing a lot of money that way if you're like, not savvy or doing it as your day job, essentially. Um,
Yeah.
I would say like join a fund so you can take a portfolio approach. So you're not just betting on
Okay.
one show on Broadway because you can't predict the hits. You can just buy Broadway, and then a basket of like all the shows. And so one of them is going to be the winner, and the winner is going to cover the losses of the whole portfolio. Like that's the strategy.
Yeah. Good advice. All right, let's go with Betty Boops. Dear
Mhm.
Mellie, please help, please help, please help. I made a mistake and I told a lot of my friends on social media I was an angel investor. And now everybody and their mother is sending me information and mad if I don't invest. What can I do? Please bail me out.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I would say, interestingly enough, most angel investors are actually super discreet about like hanging a shingle because, to that very point of like, you don't want to like open the floodgates and set this
Yeah.
expectation of like everybody and their mother is lining up with an expectation for you to invest. I would say maybe take down that shingle, but if you're
Absolutely.
comfortable with it, yeah, and then just participate in more vetted avenues. So like angel investment groups or communities where it's a little more closed access. The other thing I really wanted to talk about, and the last F is funds themselves, because only less than 15% of investing partners at US VC firms are women. And so like we always knew that there's like a diversity leadership challenge, right, across corporate America, but within VC funds themselves, because they're like these small family offices or micro funds, or like even within institutional investing, like there still is a lack of representation by women and just like underrepresented communities,
Mm.
right? And it's really important to have the voices. So like lead with your learned experience or lived experience, because to kind of beat the or combat that unconscious bias of like decision making, right? And once more, like the other really important reason why this is like just good business is like women actually tend to outperform men at investing. Like there is a study by Fidelity that on a risk adjusted basis, we actually outperform. Um, and like I've done some research in my time to kind of better understand this problem and like how do we solve for it. And I think there's like three levels that you can kind of understand the problem. So there's like the individual woman, the organization, and then the societal sort of structural challenges. And back in my consulting days, I did a study called Charge In, and it was sort of like this lean in 2.0, where it really went to investigate, and I spoke to or interviewed over 100 C-suite women and asked them questions around, what it takes to break the imaginary glass ceiling, right? And be a ceiling smasher or a trailblazer. And by doing that, I came to kind of unpack the like attitudes, behaviors, and or habits, like or mindset, like what is it that it's going to take for us to get there in our lifetime. And with it, the study, and you can read about the study on my LinkedIn,
Okay.
self-published, there's like 10 major themes that came out of this. I'm not going to talk about all of them here because I know we don't have time, but I want to talk about maybe top three that are
Okay.
really critical to women in the innovation space. And the first challenge or barrier is like imposter syndrome. I think we all suffer from it, right? It's like this lack of confidence, right? The
Why?
our
Why?
head that,
Yeah.
and I mean, ultimately it comes down to, men don't need to be as confident to apply for something like job. Let's take job interviews and job applications as just an example. You don't have to check all the boxes as a man for them to apply, but
Yeah.
women feel like we need to check all the boxes before we can even apply, right? And I think that kind of translates into all kinds of things that we do. And in the innovation space and entrepreneurial space, it's even more challenging because what you think ultimately dictates how you act or react. So I think we need to do better at that. I give a really good talk about that, or there's also a really good TEDx around three chairs with Dr. Karen Gordon. That is fabulous. And I talk about it in my Global Women's Leadership Summit. There's a playback that people can catch as well if they want to learn
Oh,
more.
good.
Failure, loss, and rejection is another tough one. I think women just ultimately, we hate failure. Like we hate failure to the point that we're so scared we don't even try, you know? So I think that's a challenge where like men can get rejected over and over again and they just get up and keep doing it, you
Yeah.
know? Whereas we're more prone to just be like, okay, we're done. Let's stop. So I think in the innovation entrepreneurial space, you have to have such a tough skin and like it's about failing forward, right? And you just got to keep going. And so I think that's something like as women we have to do a little bit better at. And then lastly, your network is your net worth. And unfortunately, I think because as women, we all usually are balancing a million different roles, right? We're
Right.
moms, sisters, we have a day job, we've got like a million other responsibilities. Ultimately, the thing that, falls off our plate is networking. But your network is your net worth. So find ways to like engage and maintain that engagement. One of my good friends who's like a partner at a law firm, she's a mom and has always been sort of this powerhouse lawyer. And what she's done is sometimes like she will sign up or register for a conference, but knows she can't attend. But she will try to attend virtually by like engaging
Mhm.
conversations or pulling down the people that she knows she needs to like meet after and be like, hey, sorry I missed you at the conference. Like you didn't attend. And that's okay because you were multitasking or had other things. But like this is the person that you consciously need to follow up with, and you do that. Like I thought that was such a brilliant like hack,
Yeah.
you know. Um, and then the other study I wanted to talk about that I've done recently was called Women in Design or Women in Tech. And this is during as an executive director at Comcast. And I did
Oh,
this sort of at the corporate level. Yeah, this study that basically looked at all of the best place to work companies for women and the top leading tech um, organizations. And what are they doing to make women feel more included and add more diversity into their practices? Um, and the study kind of looked at or came out with about three, I call it the three R's. So it comes down to three things:
okay.
recognize, reward, and resolve. And that sounds easy, like pretty trivial, but recognize is about like, if somebody did something that moved the needle, like you need to be able to recognize, and it doesn't even need to be awarded in terms of incentives or bonus or whatever. Just simple recognition, like gratitude and thankfulness is like goes a long way to motivate someone to like keep doing
Mm,
those behaviors that you actually want them to be doing. So at Comcast, we had the Circle Awards for innovation. Google has their founders award as well for people who like step out of their day jobs and comfort zone and go after something more, right? So recognition is huge. Reward is another great incentive, right? To make sure your incentives align with the behaviors you want to create and the safe space for innovation. And safe space for innovation means that failure is going to happen. So like you have to create that safe space. And then lastly, the big R is like resolve structural inequities and access. So examples of that is like mentorship programs and sponsorship, top-down awareness, right, of like bias, right? Like ethics and bias training is always like one of those like compliance check the box, but like you'll be
yeah.
amazed, like we take it for granted. Um, and then patent programs, I think, are really interesting. The thing that we kind of learned from that study is often women don't see ourselves as inventors. And in fact, there's this like the US is amongst the bottom quartile. I think it's like 10% of women file for patents in the US over compared to men. And so like we don't even see ourselves as inventors. And so I think changing that perception is really necessary, and education around like how to file or what is invention, or like you did create IP or something new. So like maybe you should like, advocate for it or make sure you get that recognition. So going back to that
Yeah.
other.
Yeah.
And so at Comcast, we had this program called Girl Storm, and it definitely moved the needle. Like when that program was in place, like we made all kinds of strides towards educating engineers, product owners, like, hey, this is the patent process. Like this is how you apply. This is how you recognize innovation or novelty, right? That sort of thing. So I think education around invention and innovation and what classifies as that is really, really important. I mean, IBM, they do it really well as well. So yeah, those are the types of examples of the three R's. And then at Axion, um, I am unabashedly try to insert myself in the selection process in our like sort of to do our deals, in that we have these monthly pitch sessions,
Mhm.
and we have we invite five companies to come in and pitch, and then we do this GP debrief, like so our general partner debrief. We go over pros and cons, right, with our investors, our LPs, to be very transparent about like what we see, what we don't see. And I almost always tag myself or assign myself the cons. So for female founders. And I'm very mindful about this because I told you I'm the only woman in
Yeah.
our fund. And I do this because women pitch differently. So women pitch differently, and we don't always fall into the normal pattern matching that VCs want to see. But because I have the lived experience and more empathy, I think, than
Yeah.
my average male counterpart, like I want to make sure that I manage the cons because um not like so much like, let's amplify the upside. I think that's going to happen with or without me. But I'm very mindful about the cons because at the end of the day, like I said, we have problems with failure and rejection and loss. And I want to make sure that the feedback is constructive, right? The feedback is constructive, the feedback is helpful, the feedback gets you to the next level and where you need to go. And to me, we have to be hypersensitive because and because some like, typical VCs look for that pattern matching, and sometimes we don't fall into the regular pattern because of lived experiences and their unconscious bias. I want to make sure that I cut out all that noise from my
Yeah.
female, and that what they're getting is like real constructive feedback that's going to be helpful.
What a gift, Mellie. Okay, I just want to know, I know we're running out of time, but I'm curious, what's the biggest difference in the way male and females pitch?
Yeah, like I said, I think it's about pattern matching. We don't always fall into the right patterns. So men lead with more stats. I think men also talk about business model, revenue generation, profit path to profitability more, whereas women might lead with more storytelling and
I
empathy,
gotcha.
right?
I so
So I
would do that. I so would do that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's general, very, very generalist,
Yeah.
men's. But also I think it's the category. So if it's like femtech, right? A man's not going to get the problem because they have no lived experience. So I think it depends on the category of solution that they're presenting as well. If it's a like a female product,
Yeah.
right? Like, so I think there's all kinds of reasons why I'm very protective of my female founders, and like I want to give them, like I said, more shots on goal.
Yeah. Good for you. I knew this was going to happen. I was like, there's no way I'm going to get all this in. But before we go, I have a few questions. Like, what's going on? Where are you going? What are you going to be doing in the next few years? Because when I was talking to you, I think you were considering maybe moving to California. I wasn't sure. So where are you?
Yeah, so today I'm in Toronto. So
Oh, you are? I thought you were in Philly.
yep, I will be back in Philly in September. But yeah, I would love to, as my next step, like get to the Bay Area, Silicon Valley, San Francisco, because to me, that is like the greatest ecosystem in the world. And I think I'd be really remiss to not contribute or drive some sort of impact
Mm.
in that ecosystem. So I'm like super ambitious and hell bent on getting out there. I am looking to land in a fund full time,
Okay.
to kind of take on a more senior role. Is kind of what I would like, aligned with a thesis that I love. So love to help female founders. Consumer tech is huge part of what I love to do, and deep tech, of course. And so we met through my annual trends report, the consumer connected consumer 2024 tech trends, and that like is downloadable on the Archangel Axion site as well, and that gives you sort of my affinity to the top 10 sort of thesis domain areas that we like to invest
It was
in.
fascinating. It was fascinating. I was so glad. I wasn't sure I could make that one. I was like running to it, and you got to download it. All right, I'm sad. We got to go. But before we go, tell my hey, I got something. Women around the world and the men supporting us. How can they find you? How can they reach you if they want to book you for a speaking gig, workshop, hire you? Tell us everything.
Yeah, I think the easiest way to find me is LinkedIn.
Okay.
I'm pretty responsive to messages. You can also email me at Mellie, Mellie, at archangelnetwork.ca.
All right, cool. All right, Mellie, before we wrap it up, is there anything we didn't get in that you want to get in?
I think what I'd love to say to the ladies is, you know, what if we can be the change we really want to see? Starting with investing in alternative asset classes like angel investing, venture capital to vote with your wallets, working with funds to diversify their leadership teams and hold them accountable to make more equitable funding decisions and be diligent with their fair
Mhm.
process. And then finally, supporting founders by helping female entrepreneurs and founders get funded beyond the usual 3% of VC dollars, but also making a difference through coaching and mentoring. So you too can invest by becoming an LP, participating in crowdfunding, hold funds accountable, support founders by mentoring, coaching, and or even offering your network to solve for gender equity over the long run.
Cool. All right, my hey, I got something to say. You know you're going to want to support Mellie. We would really appreciate you sharing this with at least one person. You know, so many that would really appreciate this show. And as always, I'm so grateful for you rating, liking it. Your support means the world to me. We support so many women around the world. I am truly gifted. And until next time, you know what I'm going to say. Thanks, Mellie, and toodles.